Just ahead on Think, UTD's quest to find and promote gifted artists who haven't yet made a splash on the gallery scene. In a landscape as varied and crowded as the world of fine art, how do critics and gallery owners assess what's new and different and decide which works are worthy of exhibition? Recently, influential North Texas art critics were asked to reveal their favorite under-the-radar artists, those with great potential but limited exposure on the gallery scene. Their picks are now on display through February 22nd at the Visual Arts Building on the campus of the University of Texas at Dallas. And joining us to discuss the PIX2 exhibition is its curator, Associate Professor of Visual Arts, John Pomara. John, welcome to Think.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, if not galleries, where do critics and even gallery owners go to sort of find this new talent?
Well, they go to spaces like at UTD, alternative spaces, 500X, also some universities sponsor other gallery shows and on their campus, and it gives opportunity, to young artists who haven't have a commercial gallery and to be seen, opportunities to be seen in group shows mostly.
What sort of responsibility lies with the power to launch someone's career?
What sort of responsibility? I think most people are excited, like myself, even to do this show. This is the second time I did it 10 years ago when I first started at UTD. And it was such an overwhelming success of bringing the community together to see what critics were looking at, and it brought artists there and patrons. And so for me, it was just real exciting as a way to build the art community here and to help it to grow and to nurture it.
Do critics feel like their reputations are tied to the fates of the artists that they have really praised and promoted, or perhaps criticized?
Of course. I found it very interesting that they were very, took their time in being selective with this, and several of them asked me who the other critics, what they had picked, and I think that they were curious about what each other's, interests and concerns were, and the artists that they can really help.
Are you confident that the most gifted artists of any generation will ultimately find an audience, or are there masterworks lying unsold in someone's garage?
Well, I used to always believe the cream always goes to the top. It was my upbringing under the readings of Clement Greenberg who actually made that statement that the cream rises to the top. And I think in most cases it does, but sometimes an artist is late in his life before he gets recognized. There's a French artist, Eugene Leroy, who got discovered at age 80, and you think that that would, been discovered much sooner than that. But sometimes the world changes to where people, they look at an artist in a new way 20 years later.
How much of the success of an artist and what he or she is trying to do is tied to the story, the sort of personal story of that person as an individual?
I think all artists' work is somehow connected to themselves. It can be either how they see the world, or it can be a narrative that they make up that's directly, intimate to their own personalities, or it could be, a way of just expressing it with symbolically, different aspects. So I think there's a range of ways. As even an abstract artist is using abstract images in a certain way that are reflective of the culture and the time period.
So what does it take to stay abreast of trends in the region, in the country, around the world? How do you possibly know what's going on and synthesize everything that you've seen so that you know when something is brand new and fresh?
Well, as you know, being in media, we're saturated with it to the point where we know what's going on in Moscow, in an hour, or television, or New York City, or LA. So media teaches all of us, and the students are smart and hip and looking young artists, and we're all on the internet looking at blogs, and even the art magazines have blogs that are more immediate than the once-a-month magazines that come out. But I think media, from art magazines to travel, we travel more. I go to New York City 4 or 5 times a year to visit friends, to go to the galleries, to keep up, bringing that information back to my own students. And I think young artists are doing the same thing now, and travel is more accessible, and people go to the art centers, to museum exhibitions, and they pick up on new things and they push their own work further.
We know that critics are very influential, but to what extent is an artist's ability to actually get money for his or her work really the basis by which people judge how good they are, how important?
Well, when you first start out as a young artist, it takes time for that to happen, and critics, when they begin to write about your work and evaluate your work and put it into a context for a collector to understand it, then that leads the collector to buying the work. So it's this weird cycle and catch-22 sometimes that you want, first, I think a young artist has to get the work seen, And then when it's seen, critics start to write about you, and then when that happens and people begin to understand what the work's about and that it's important or meaningful, then collectors follow and purchase and buy it. And there's always a few collectors that are on the lookout for the younger artists. They want to, you know, catch them on the upswing before the prices are high. And so it's an interesting cycle, but it's really hard for artists at first to get bought and to fund their work to maybe a larger scale and more ambitious work. I know when I first started out I had that problem, and at one point I think I bought materials like very expensive aluminum materials to upgrade the look of my work, and I put it on a credit card, and you know, luckily the show sold out and I was able to, you know, pay off my debts. But a lot of artists go through that type of scenario.
Is there a disadvantage to artists who produce things, especially in the beginning of their careers, that are not pleasant to look at?
Some are not pleasant and some are just difficult. In the PIX show, Terry Thornton is an artist I really respect and greatly because her work is very difficult to sell. I mean, she comes in and does wall installations using text to get you to think about how you perceive and how you see, how you think. And that's hard to sell in a commercial gallery. And in Dallas, or Texas region, there's not as many galleries as New York City or Los Angeles, so there aren't as many places that are going to think they can sell that kind of work here.
John, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can see PIX2 at the Visual Arts Building on the UTD campus through February 22nd. Admission is free. Video and audio podcasts of the show are available online at kera.org/think. Our email address is think@kera.org. My name is Chris Boyd. Thanks for being with us and have a great week.